couple of 80-year-olds saved their house using a garden hose from the LA fires in Palisades. Guys, you can't make this up. As always, if you want to learn more about realistic survival and preparedness, which as you see, it does work, you have a channel with a ton of information, and I always recommend my books, Surviving the Economic Collapse and Street Survival Skills. These books will help you get a lot better prepared, get you in the right mindset so as to do things like these. Check this out.
Here's an incredible story that you have to see. A local married couple, both in their 80s, stayed put during the Palisades fire, and they survived to tell their story. They used a garden hose to put out the flames that were approaching their home. As Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell.
Imagine if instead of DI hires, instead of wasting and stealing money, they would have invested that. If a couple 80-year-olds did this, imagine what could have been done with federal, local government, and that kind of money.
Explains in this exclusive story, this is not their first time battling a wildfire.
I genuinely feel safer up here. I don't think you can understand that.
Bless her heart.
I do.
Susan Salser watched the Palisades fire approach her home Tuesday from her kitchen window, snapping these photos. The 85-year-old fought the fire with her 86-year-old husband, Winston, saving their home, just like they did in the 1978 fire that hit the Palisades. Their home is one of only 3 still standing at the top of their Pacific Palisades street.
I used the hose to control the ground fire and stop that end of the house from burning. I wasn't sure where Winston was. Couldn't contact him, but it turned out he was at the south end of the house doing the same thing, using a hose to keep the flames from touching the house.
I thought I was going to lose them both. I actually thought that I had when I was seeing the coverage.
The Salser's son, Mark, who lives outside Seattle, knew his parents were unlikely to evacuate even if their home was surrounded by fire. In addition to fighting the fire themselves, Susan and Winston Salser credit the nearly 100 live oak trees that Winston planted in their backyard for helping prevent their home from catching fire.
I mean, they're in their 80s and they saved their own house. How do you explain this?
Tenacity. I mean, both of my parents are really smart people and are adept dealing with things.
Again, old people with a couple garden hose. Imagine what actual firemen, instead of nonsense and woke bullshit, instead of that, what could have been done to prevent this in the first place and fight it correctly if it ended up happening.
Build a life, right? And it's hard to imagine how you leave that. I don't know that that's a wise thing to do.
Winston Salser was injured fighting the fire with his garden hose, suffering burns on his arms and legs that will keep him in the hospital for a week. But Susan Salser says he'll be okay, and even without water or power, she hasn't left her home and has no plans to.
This is heaven for me, this location. And I'm almost 85 years old, and the remodel of this house was my job that I completed 12 years ago, and here I stay. Whether it's as a human being or ashes, I don't know, but so far it's as a human being.
In Pacific Palisades, Josh Haskell, ABC 7.
Crazy. Guys, this is just something that shows you that if there's a will, there's going to be a way, especially if you prepare, if you have there's a bunch of things here that definitely you could work on in terms of cleaning up, of avoiding having stuff that could burn, if there's, even a more challenging scenario here with fire. But the attitude of these people in their 80s should put all of these politicians to shame. See you on the next video. Take care.